for having me here today. I appreciate it because I'm heading to Pier today. One of the things that I do is I'm a lobbyist for the Social Work Association. So tomorrow is the governor's State of the State address, so I'm headed to Pier today, and I'm glad the weather is looking promising and it's not 30 below like it has been and things like that. So a little bit about me. I want to just talk a little bit about me and my background and how I got involved in politics and interested in politics. I grew up, as Sharon said, in Turton, 7 miles from Turton. I went to school at Northwestern. My dad's a farmer and a math nerd, and my mom is a nurse and a nursing instructor. And so growing up, you know, I always knew the importance of education and policy. And one of the things that my parents always did, I'd ask them about an issue, and I'd say, well, how are you going to vote on this issue, and what do you think about this issue? And they'd go, and I can remember this like as young as 9 or 10, and they'd go, well, here's what one side says about it, and here's what the other side says about it. We're not going to tell you how we think about it, so what do you think about it? And what do you see as the positives? So I learned very early on that critical thinking and really thinking about policy instead of politics, and thinking about people and putting them first. So as I said, I grew up, went to Northwestern. I was heavily involved in the South Dakota 4-H program, the Spink County 4-H program, and so I learned a lot about agriculture and the importance of agriculture in the rural communities. I was a state 4-H officer for a year. I was on the state 4-H youth council board, where I got to go to Pier to talk about agriculture and South Dakota Extension and why that program was really important and why that was important to me. And so it's always kind of been something that I've done. Another opportunity that I had growing up was with the South Dakota Farmers Union. When I was a junior in high school, they flew me out to DC for my first fly-in. So that was my first opportunity to talk to some of our national leaders about agriculture in my community and how that was really impacting some of the policies that were going on, specifically the Farm Bill, talking about coal legislation and ethanol and renewable fuels and bringing them back. That was important to our state. So graduated from Northwestern, went to Presentation College where I received my bachelor's in social work and bachelor's in psychology. And while I was at PC, I also had the opportunity to continue to go out to Pier and advocate for issues that I cared about. Originally, social work, you think a lot of clinical work and working with individuals and things like that, which I love to do. But I took a social work public policy class, and I realized that my love of politics and policy growing up really connected with that social work and helping people and things like that. So as I continued my education through PC, I really realized that there was this whole other world of social work, and that was community practice and public policy. And so from then on, I knew I wanted to do what we call macro social work, and working with larger communities and strategically thinking with organizations and looking at policy and impacting people that way. So with that being said, I continued. I served on the National Association of Social Workers South Dakota board as a student. I also, as I said, every other week was in Pier talking to legislators about a different issue and things like that as a student. From there, I went on to Omaha to get my graduate degree, left the state for a couple of years, and I received my master's in social work and public administration. So I did a dual master's degree in Omaha, and that's really where I got my core understanding of how policy works and how nonprofits work and how government agencies work. And so I learned a lot there. I also had the opportunity to work for a therapeutic group home that helped co-occurring youth with mental health and substance abuse disorders. So I learned a lot about that community and how those policies affect people and the kids going through the foster care system and kids who are receiving treatment and how, you know, those Medicaid dollars and those state dollars were really important to them, not only on the treatment side but also on the prevention side. So after I graduated from UNO, came back to South Dakota, finished out my graduate degree actually while I was in Pier. I was a an intern with the NASW, the Social Work Association, and lobbied for them my first year. Since returning back to South Dakota, I've since become a contract lobbyist with the Social Work Association, and this will be my 4th session going out there to lobby for them. So as a lobbyist for the social workers, I get to talk about all sorts of issues. I get to talk about adoption issues, I get to talk about, Medicaid and healthcare, access to mental health services, licensing, all sorts of things, taxes. We talk about taxes a lot too because that is a direct impact on how individuals' income is distributed and how they're able to get access to different things like food. We talk about workforce conditions, things like that. So the blessing and the curse of a social work lobbyist is that I get to look at a whole host of issues and really look at how they impact people, because they're all impacting people, they're all impacting social workers and our clients that we serve. And I also, in my spare time, get to help my family still out on the farm in Turton. My nephews have started showing hogs and pigs, and so I've been going to more hog shows and cattle shows as I've been home and helping with that, which is a lot of fun. And just spending time, helping out on the farm and things like that, and I still do enjoy doing that on my spare time. I also work full-time for a social work consulting company, and what we do is look at different communities and help different communities with evaluation services, strategic planning, community development, organizational development, different things like that. So again, on that macro side, I've been really fortunate to be able to do that and work with different communities across the state and travel around the state, talking to them about what's going on and how we can help them with that. Excuse me. So that's kind of what I've been doing. I've also adjunct at PC, gone back to my alma mater and been able to teach that same class that changed my career as a social worker, going to the macro side of it, which has been cool. And just been really involved again, as Sharon said, and I've been really fortunate to be able to be involved in a lot of different organizations and been giving back to the community that really helped me out. So when I started thinking about whether I was going to run for office or not, I started thinking about I kind of like this lobbying thing, I like being out in Pierre. That's kind of a guarantee. Running for office isn't necessarily a guarantee. But it came down to, a goal I set myself. I always knew I wanted to give back in that public service. I wanted to give back to the community that had given back so much to me and help build me up to who I was today. That in community, being the 4-H community, being the Farmers Union community, being, my geographical community in Brentford and Turton and Millette and Redfield and Aberdeen, have all given me so much and so many opportunities. So I really wanted to give back and do that. So that was really important. One of the other things that I thought about as I was making this decision was a voice for agriculture for District 2. District 2, as many of you may know, is a largely rural district. And our current delegation has 0 experience when it comes to agriculture. And so that was really important to me. I didn't see those individuals talking about agriculture. I didn't see them standing up for those issues. I didn't see them doing that. And being a farm girl, being someone who agriculture gave so much to, and was, my family's livelihood, to have that not represented in Pierre was a problem. Not having a voice in Pierre was a problem. And I really, really saw that need right there. So, mulling all these things around, I talked to my family, I talked to, a few other people. I got some very strong encouragement from some individuals. And, it really became clear that with Representative Tolson's seat being open and being that opportunity, that this was going to be the year to do it. I talked to my boss, I talked to all these people, and it really was the right time. And so I made the decision. I made my announcement on December 14th. So far it's been going really well. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. So many different individuals in my community who I had no idea were even paying attention or listening to politics, or reaching out and saying, we're so excited that you're running, we've seen this, and we're so excited to be able to have a voice for agriculture and someone in our community to be able to give back. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to represent my community, and I'm really excited about being able to talk to individuals like yourselves about what issues are important to you, and I'm looking forward to listening and having those conversations. So my campaign, we're running, we've got a website up, Facebook page, we've got a press release out and things like that, so it's been going really well. But I'm going to be running on a few different issues, and I'm focusing on stronger communities, putting people before politics, and rural life. So when I talk about stronger communities, I really know what a strong community is from studying communities in social work and public administration is that. But I've learned mostly about strong communities from growing up in a really strong community. From my church community, from the community surrounding my farm and my family and things like that, they're always the ones that are going to give that lifting hand and be able to organize something like that if you need something. A couple of years ago, my family went through a situation where several of us were out of commission during harvest. My dad and my brother both, who are two main on the farm, and we needed help. And without even asking, this community rallied a harvest bee, and we had 9 combines and 14 some trucks and all of these grain carts, and we finished our corn harvest in 6 hours. That would have taken my uncle and sister 6 weeks maybe. And so that's the kind of the community that I came from, and I want to make sure that our policies in Pierre and our policies, locally are not inhibiting people to keep putting into their community and being community focused. I want to make sure we're community focused and focusing on building each other and being part of that. The other thing I touched on briefly is people before politics. As I said, growing up, my parents were very much so like, look at the issue. We're not going to tell you either way. Growing up, my mom was a registered Republican. I had no idea. My dad was a registered Democrat. I had no idea. I had no idea what they were doing as far as politically goes, because they would never tell me. And so they really taught me those critical thinking skills and really taught me to look at how it's going to affect people. And that was all only strengthened through my studies and my experience in social work and public administration. And so that's a focus of my campaign, is really saying, I'm going to put the people of District 2, the people of Brown, Spink, Clark, and Hamlin counties of South Dakota first. And I want to listen to your issues. I want to figure out what matters to you and why that matters and what we need to make a priority in Pierre before I'm going to play any kind of political games. And then lastly, focusing on rural life. So this is more encompassing, but again, when we think about our rural communities, we often have less access to different services, mental health care services, rural health care, education, good roads, infrastructure, all of those different things our rural communities are really struggling with. And as a social worker, there's been a lot of talk about some of our mental health specifically in rural areas, and how we have the least amount of access but often have the most amount of problems in those areas from people being able to access those types of services. And so that's something that's really important to me, is to be able to figure out a way to incentivize getting programs and services in our communities, and also reducing the stigma of going to access those services. Another part of rural life is renewable fuels. I've been a huge fan of ethanol since as long as I can remember. When I was in junior high, I wrote a paper about how great ethanol was, and I've continued about it since. And so that's another priority that I want to make sure that as a state, we're supporting our farmers and ranchers and using renewable fuels in our state fleet, in our county fleets, and things like that, and making sure that those become a priority as well.